Uh, um, Good day, everyone. Once again, it is still your humble professor, Reasonable, and we are still on the issue of divorce. We are talking about the logical and some emotional matters. Now, we have tried to analyze how ignorance and education, the fact that we we have not take cognizance of how the world is changing and how education is also a factor that is contributing to change, and for that reason how it's affecting our divorce today, and the fact that it's and divorce is now a global crisis. So the other factor we're going to be looking at now is sexual social relations. Now, in sexual social relations, we'll be looking at, I'm taking specifically some examples. The issue of virginity, nudity, and rape, as it is common in our society today, in the smart world we are living in. Now, naturally, you know, you realize that in the slavery world, in the colonial world, to begin with virginity, women largely married as virgins. But today in the smart world, most of us would have taken note of something, that majority of our women today are now going into marriage after having lost their virginity. Now, does this really affect marriages? Is this contributing to how does this contribute to the divorce crisis that we have today? Now, also the problem of nudity. There is I try to make a difference between being naked and being nude. Now, I want to say that commercial nakedness is what I call nudity. Yes, when I mean commercial nakedness, even especially in the ancient world, you discover that when people have not really gained the science and technology of making good clothes, though people still covered up somehow, especially the shameful parts of the body. Largely, in the ancient era, people exposed their bodies. But the kind of sexual drive, sorry, that we have today as a result of, or sexual crisis that we have today as a result of nudity, was not really common in those era. Now, this is as a result of the fact that today that we have sophisticated science and technology for for sophisticated science and technology for creating good clothes that ordinarily humans we 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 employ for covering nakedness. But what is happening today is that there is deliberate attempt for humans, especially if you look at it, especially in the female world, to try to commercialize nudity. You know, exposing oneself in such a way that it attracts the opposite sex for benefit. Let me put it that way. This is what I call nudity. Now, also, you realize that a major percentage of our ladies today, in one way or the other, have become victims to rape before they eventually marry. Or some who are even married today, okay, let me put it that in this way, that rape is a major challenge that we have in today's smart world as compared to the slavery world and the colonial world. So, if I may say that in terms of rape, I would say the colonial world or the slavery world was more, apart from you being a slave those days, as a free person, I don't think that um, um, free people in the slavery world were exposed to the risk of rape. But in today's free world, where people are supposed to enjoy freedom, you now realize that rape is becoming an epidemic in our society. Now, how does this issue now affect our marriage? Certainly, you'll agree with me that for women who lived in the slavery era, lived in the colonial era, and they before they even reach the age of what I call the age of innocence, between age 10 to 15, or the age of virginity, where most of them were still virgins, they would have been married to their husbands in the slavery and the colonial era. And as at that time, you realize that there is this story that we got, that most women experience their first menstruation even in their husband's house. Yes, in those days. Now, but in today's world, like I said, you see, today a lady is like 35, 38, yet she's still not married. Naturally, life is a journey. Life is a journey. And on the journey of this life comes with different kinds of risk and different kinds of accidents. And naturally, this virginity, nudity, and rape are parts of these natural accidents, or let me say artificial accidents, that especially the female folks are now being exposed to because of the over delay in marriage. If a woman who along the line marries between the age of 15 to 20, or let me say 10 to 15, 20 or thereabout, naturally would be less exposed to so much risk than a woman who has lived all by herself. At a certain early age in life, most of our ladies today even leave their parents to go and live by themselves in school. Some of our ladies spend their secondary school life in even boarding housing system. In the university, the same thing. They are living by themselves. And these are actually times where naturally, you know, humans are still not matured yet. They have still not learned the act of self-control. Yes. Now, most people usually make the mistake to want to believe that education is because women are exposed to education. That is why today they are not marrying on time. That is why they are being disvirgin before they marry, or they are exposed to the issues of nudity or rape or whatsoever. But for me, it is the contrary. Education is not actually the problem. But what is the problem is what we are going to really analyze now. The fact that most of us actually have not really understood the different stage or stages of a child's development. Now, from age 1 to age 10, and how to, if you understand these different stages of development, you will actually understand as a parent how to take advantage of these stages and to be able to avoid all these accidents. Now, from age 1 to age 10, from 1 to 10 years is what we call the stage of ignorance. And from 10 to 15 years It's what we call the stage of innocence, innocence or virginity. Then from age 15 to 18 to 25 years is what we call the stage of reason stroke maturity. Then from the age of 25 to 27 to 40 years is what we call the age of application or consequence, or the age of consequence. Then from 40 to 80 and beyond is what we call the age of definition. Age of definition. Now, these different ages, as to how a child develops, are very significant. If, as a parent, we can actually understand how children or human functions within this different age, it will avail us the opportunity and the advantage to be able to deal with these issues, and despite the fact that our children are being educated, despite the fact that we are exposing our children to education. Now, naturally, you realize that recently there were a lot of trendy videos where juveniles, children in secondary school, boarding house, or whatsoever, started having sex tapes trending on the social media. That somehow, some way, some person started really feeling like, wow, it's as if this education self is a problem, or our educational system or the school itself is a problem, especially for the female. Now, the real challenge is just this: that between the age of 1 and 10 years, you realize that naturally most children are usually ignorant, especially when it comes to the area of sex. They would not have really started exploring their sexual world. Now, in this stage of ignorance, learning is actually begins, and this is where probably they will be in their primary undergoing their primary education, probably living with their parents, and you realize that at this stage, children tend to learn by emulation. Whatever you do, they want to do. Even from like 3 months, 4 months, whatever you say, they want to say. This is why it is very, very important, it's very key that as parents, we must be careful of what we do in the presence of our children. Because if we know that at this stage of ignorance, they don't know anything, they can't reason, they just act as they see everything around, is behaving. So they will not, because you are the first contacts to them in terms of learning and so on and so forth, they will naturally want to do what you are doing. They want to emulate you as parents. Now, at this point too, you also notice something. By the time it's maybe between the age of 3, 4, and thereabout, when they start talking, they'll start asking questions. And naturally, even when you explain to them, they don't understand. Because at this level of this, why we say it is level of ignorance, it is the age of ignorance. Even at this level, no matter how you try to understand, but it is still necessary to understand, because to explain, because that explanation has a way of activating their mind of reasoning gradually. But reasoning will still be very, very slow as at this stage. Now, between age 10, age 15, gradually the ignorance will start departing gradually. And some may still be able to maintain their innocence. Usually, this is the age where most of our mothers in the slavery and the colonial era, they got married. So you realize that most women went to their husband's house with innocence and virginity. And especially in those primitive era, we still with ignorance because there was no serious form of education for the women. So they went to their husband's house with a lot of ignorance, innocence, and also virginity. So you now realize that, now imagine a female child at this age, between 10 and 50, what does the child really know? So you now realize that the real learning, this is why in those days they used to say that you don't really, apart from what the mother would teach a female child, how to maintain the home and so on, it is the family of the husband that will actually do the teaching, whatever they want to impart into a female child. Because when the child now gets to, because there are different kinds of family, in the ancient setting, they realize that there are different kinds of family. So when every family has its own kind of business, its own kind of orientation. So when you send your female child there, that is when the child will now begin to learn afresh whatever she will need to carry on in life with the husband. So now between the age, okay, at this age also, in this particular smart world, you also notice children will now start actually developing the mind of reason. 14, 15, when you talk to them, you explain to them, they'll begin to kind of understand, gradually. But another thing you also discover at this age is that children of this age also ask a lot of questions, because learning at this age is very high for children. Reasoning is very low, because reasoning is very low. They also have to depend on more matured persons around them to be able to understand a lot of things that is happening around. This is why, especially this age of innocence and virginity, it is very key for parents to be close to their female children, because this is the age where their body system, their sexual maturity really begin to manifest, and they feel it. They want to ask questions. If as a parent you are close to your female children, they will ask questions and you'll be able to explain to them. They'll be able to learn so many things firsthand from you without going out there to be deceived. Now, at the age of 15 to 18 years, where most of our female children and even male children would have reached proper puberty, at this age, learning is also very high. Now, reasoning, the capacity to reason would have started also, developing gradually too, and better, more impacted than in the stage of innocence and virginity, which is from age 10 and age 15. Now, you now realize what happens at this age. Between age 15 and 18, especially to like 2021, this is where you now realize that children withdraw to themselves. Probably at this stage, they are in secondary school. Like in those days when they used to ask a lot of questions between age 10 and age 15, suddenly they now stop really, asking too much questions. At this stage, because their power of reasoning has started growing gradually, they now tend to begin to depend on themselves to try to find answers to certain things they want to understand. And also, at this stage, they would have started mingling with peers. This is where peer pressure is really peer pressure is really a serious issue among growing children. Now, they would have started mingling with peers and interacting. Because naturally there is, especially for parents who don't create that avenue for their children to be exceptionally close to them, it means that that gap is going to be filled by peers, by friends, and there is no way that friends of the same age will be better informed than parents. So, and among a group of persons, there are those who always want to form the leaders, who lead the group and want to claim that they know better. Others in the group look up to them for certain informations. And if those who are such very young um, um, persons who are leading such group are depraved, trust me, your children are going to share from that depravity. It is a natural phenomenon. So this is where parents are supposed to this is the age where parents are supposed to really take advantage of, because at this point your children really start maturing. This is a point where you can really be able to explain so many things that your children really want to understand, because their power of reason, this is why we call it the age of reason and maturity. At this point, you now realize that whether female children or male children, they become defiant too in the house. You now realize that a child who was like 10 years, 15 years those days, you can easily tell a child, "Come on, go and do this, go and do that, come here, do this and that." The child will not resist you. Between age 15, age 18, 20, these children starts to, when you tell them certain things, they frown. When you tell them certain things, they resist. Now, it shows that they have arrived the age of reason. What these children are naturally saying is this: you don't just, as humans, especially who are now acquiring education, whether primary or, sorry, at this time, maybe some of them would have even left secondary school. They have also they are now also acquiring the capacity to reason, the capacity to analyze. So they want you to give them reason for whatever actions you want them to perform. So this is when parents actually should really calm down, be more friendly, be more explanatory, be more diplomatic, be more adopt the method of negotiation more with children. Yes, because even as children, the smart children or the smart kids of this generation are actually different from the colonial children, and are actually different from the slave children. The slave children and the colonial children understood how to take orders. The slave children and the colonial children understood subjugation. They understood being dominated. But this is where you realize that in this generation, you talk to a child will tell you, daddy, you can lie. Yes, because they probably reason what you are saying, and they feel this doesn't align with reason. It doesn't make sense. And because in this generation too is a generation of freedom, they can actually freely express themselves, as opposed to the colonial generation, that children, even when they know that the parents are lying, or parents say certain things that doesn't make sense, yet they cannot actually express it. They might just go behind and say, what daddy said, I don't think, but before you, in your presence, they cannot say it. So now, between the age of 25 to 27 and to 40, most of our children probably would have gone through even the university and would have started graduating. Today, we even have children who graduate at the age of 21, 22, 23, and so on. So, which means that 25, 27, most children, Amy,